Cloud telephony. Surgery Connect is a voice over internet protocol based system, and inbound calls are answered automatically by Surgery Connect. The patients will then go into queues for your particular practice, and in those queues, they get their queue position so they know how many people have got to be answered before they are. There's also the option of adding in patient callback, which is our automated callback system. If your queues are particularly long, and that limit can be set by the practice, then the patients are told that they can press 1 on their telephone keypad, and that will hold their position in the queue. The patient can then put the phone down, and the call will move forward in the queue as though they'd stayed on the phone. When the call reaches the front of the queue, it will go through to one of the reception team to answer, and will be announced so that the receptionist knows that the system is then making an outbound call automatically back to the patient. So no extra work to do in the reception area, just be aware that one of those inbound calls could be a patient callback call. There's also no capacity limit on outbound calls on this system, so if you need to make an outbound call, even when it's busy with inbound calls from patients, you'll always be able to do that. Through the phone bar on the directory, you can see who's logged into the system and who's available for a call. So if looking for a telephone number to transfer calls through to, you can see if that person's already on the phone or if they're away from their desk. All calls on Surgery Connect are recorded, so that's both inbound and outbound calls, and that's regardless of the device that's used. Surgery Connect is clever enough to send your calls to different phones depending on how you're working, and it doesn't matter where the call ends up, so long as it's gone through Surgery Connect, it will be recorded for you. You can also switch from audio to video during a call. If you're using the soft phone on the phone bar and the patient's on a mobile phone, during the call, you can send out a text message that will include a link to the video call. There's no extra apps for a patient to download. They just need to click on the link, say yes to using the camera on their mobile device, and yes to the video call. That will then drop the audio call, and the video call will be ringing on the phone bar for you. Surgery Connect also enables flexible working, so it doesn't matter whereabouts you're sitting within the practice. Whichever PC you log into, when you log into your clinical database, the phone bar will be automatically logged into your user ID. You can also set the phone bar to log you into a desk phone automatically. You can also access Surgery Connect anywhere where you can access the internet. You can log in via a website and access an on-screen soft phone that will enable us to make and receive calls as though you were still in the practice, even showing the surgery main number whenever you make an outbound call. The main thing to think about on Surgery Connect is users rather than phones. So rather than having individual phones on the desks with the telephone number, on Surgery Connect, it's the users that have the numbers. So as a user on the system, you'll have your own internal short dial number. That number will stay the same no matter which PC you log into or which phone you log into within the practice. We can also set up a direct dial number, which will be an external number. And again, those will follow you around no matter where you're logged in. And there'll also be groups set up on the system. Each group has its own short dial number as well. So if you don't mind who you speak to in a team, you can ring the group number rather than the individual. And then the call will go through to whoever's next available in that team to take that call. And that's how your patient calls will be distributed as well. So when they ring the main practice number, they'll be answered by Surgery Connect and they'll go through a call flow, which will give them some information and may ask them to choose what sort of thing it is that they're calling about. Typically, that will split your calls into things like appointments, prescription queries, test results, specific clinics, or different departments. Once the patient's made their selection, they'll queue for the team that answers those particular calls. When the call reaches the front of the queue, the system will look around the group, see who's logged in and who's been waiting for a call the longest, and it rings that person's phone first. It will ring your phone for about 30 seconds, and if you don't answer, if you're in a group, it will then move on to the next person that's available within that team. So it will ring round everybody in a group, but it's going to do it one person at a time. If you are available when a call comes in, each time you answer the phone on Surgery Connect, you'll have a voice we call a whisper that tells you what the call should be about. So if you're on reception and answering a patient callback call, it will say contacting caller before making the outbound call for you. If it's a call to your internal short dial or a direct dial number that you have, when you answer the phone, it will say direct call. And if it's a call through one of the groups, it will tell you the name of the group. So if you are in reception and answer different types of calls, it will then tell you whether the patient's selected to discuss an appointment, a prescription query, test results, or any other general inquiries you deal with. And it doesn't matter where those calls are answered, although initially you're going to be using the soft phone on the phone bar. In order to log in for the first time, you'll need to set a password. You can access the Surgery Connect login screen using this website at the top of the page. So this is sso.x-onweb.com. That will then take you to a login screen. And if you click the forgotten password link on that screen, it will then allow you to type in your NHS email address and click send email. That will then send you a password setting link so that you can then log into the system wherever you can access the internet. It will also be needed as part of the setup for your phone bar on your PC for the first time. The phone bar can be accessed using the icon on your desktop. So this is the Surgery Connect logo, and it will be highlighted as the phone bar on your desktop there. The first time that you open the phone bar, you will need SystmOne open and unlocked, and then it will go through an initial setup. There's quite a few screens for the initial setup, but it will first of all take you to the phone bar setup where you can just click to get started. It will then ask you to log in using your NHS email address and the password you will have set using that forgotten password link. That will then let you link up to the phone bar, and you can then allow the phone bar to open if you have any pop-ups there. That will then link you to your particular practice. So you'll have your name and then your practice name. So our practice name is the SystmOne Test Surgery. If you just click on the next button, once you get that success message, it will then move into integrating with your SystmOne system. Selecting SystmOne on the pop-up there, and then making sure that you click the little tick in the note to say that you are integrating with a clinical system. You can then click on the next button, and that will then integrate with SystmOne that you'll have open in the background there. Once that's been done, the phone bar will then appear. You may get some pop-ups as well through SystmOne. So if you see any device approval pop-ups, you will need to make sure that they're approved in SystmOne as it's going through the setup there. And then once that's been done, you will get a confirmation screen within the phone bar setup. The phone bar then appears as this little blue bar just down at the bottom of your screen. What I'm going to do now, though, is just close this presentation, and I'm actually going to show you the phone bar on my desktop now so that we can go through the various options available. So here we have my desktop. I've got SystmOne running in the background. It's locked at the moment, so I'm going to make sure I pop in my password, unlock that, and then we will go through the setup for the phone bar there. Now, if I minimize SystmOne on my desktop here, I can see my phone bar icon. So if I double click on the phone bar, because I've already got it set up, it's going to pop up down at the bottom of the screen against the taskbar. However, if I were to go through the hidden icons here, I can relaunch the setup if I need to. And that will then go through the setup as it did initially. So I can click to get started. It will automatically confirm my details once it's done the authentication sign in using my single sign-on login and password. It's confirmed who I am and where I am. I can now select SystmOne. And once it's all integrated, I can just finish. Now, I will only need to do that for the first time, although you can redo it anytime that you need to. Now I've got the phone bar down at the bottom of the screen here. I can move it from left and right just by clicking on the phone bar and moving it along my taskbar. It will stick to one screen, although if you use multiple screens in the settings, you can choose which of your screens the phone bar sits at the bottom of there. Now, at the moment, we've only got a few icons available. So we've got our help center here. So Surgery Connect has its own Surgery Connect on the phone bar has its own online help section. And if I click on help here, it will then open the phone bar help section within our help pages. So there are step-by-step instructions here for anything that you would need to do. And you can always access that using the question mark icon on the phone bar itself. The next icon in the middle is for our active patient options. So if I had a patient open in SystmOne, I'd be able to click on that and see the different communication methods. We'll have a look at that once we've opened a patient though. And then the last icon here is the keypad, and that one will open up the phone bar so that you can then see the phone options as well. So again, even in its maximized format, I can move it from left and right on my screen there. We've got some more icons on here. And the first thing that we've got here is our settings cog just on the right hand side. Now this controls how the phone bar works with your clinical database. So if I click on the settings here, it will open up a new pop-up window and first of all go into my preferences. The first two as a default will be turned off. So with Surgery Connect, you are able to file a copy of call recordings and any text messages that you send out directly back into the SystmOne notes for the patient. Most practices aren't doing that straight away, so we've turned those off as a default. But if your practice is filing each and every call back into the patient's notes, then you can turn on the quick file, and after each call, it will just give you a button that will allow you to file that to the patient's clinical record. Likewise with the texts, again, most practices aren't doing that by default, but you can file that directly back into the patient's clinical notes there. Find patient record for incoming calls here is really useful. Having that turned on will mean that on each inbound call, Surgery Connect will search SystmOne to see if you have any patients that match that inbound calling number. And if you do, it will then bring up the patient's details in a small pop-up at the top of the phone bar. I'm going to show you that in a moment when I actually ring in, so that I can show you an active call there as well. The last one in the preferences here is the monitor that it wants to display the phone bar on. So I've currently got it set on my monitor here. If you have multiple monitors though, you can move it from screen to screen just by selecting the different screen here. If you're using the soft phone, so the phone actually through the phone bar itself, rather than having your calls through a desk phone, then the audio and video preferences here will also allow you to set your microphone for the headset that you're currently using. And you can see as it's talking, it's picking up my microphone on my headset here. It will also pick up any webcam that you have, so that if you're doing a video call with the patient, you can have a two-way video call rather than just the patient's image. And you can also set a secondary ringer. So when a call comes in, if you're using the soft phone, the call will ring through your headset rather than on any other device. But you can set your speakers here so that on your PC, you can actually have the ringing tone coming through your PC. And then when you answer the call, all of the other audio will go directly through the headset that you're then wearing to link with the soft phone. You can use the little cross at the top to close, or if you just click on the icon again on the phone bar, it will close those windows for you. The next thing that we're going to have a look at is our availability here. So it's logged me in and I'm currently available to make and receive calls. If you click on the availability on the phone bar, you'll be able to change that directly on your screen. And even if you're using a desk phone, you can change your status on the screen and it will also change it on the desk phone for you. So here we have our user status. I'm currently logged in and available. So in the directory, I will show with a little green dot so that everybody knows I'm available to make and receive calls there. If you need to leave your desk for any reason, to stop calls coming through whilst you're not there to answer them, you can change your status to do not disturb. And if you select the do not disturb status, it will then stop any calls ringing through your short dial, a direct dial number, or via the groups. They won't come through to you if you're there to answer the patient calls answer the calls from patients. If you do work in reception and you're answering those patient calls and you're given something else to do for an hour or two and you're not taking the patient calls, direct calls only will turn you amber in the directory, and that will then mean that you can receive internal calls or calls on your direct dial number, but you won't receive any calls coming through the groups. It will only be calls coming directly through to you. So I'm going to leave myself as available here. You can also see the groups that I'm a member of within the practice, and any group with a tick, I'm an active member of there. So the calls will come through that queue, and we'll look to see if I'm available, and it will ring my phone. If I don't answer after 30 seconds, it will then move on to somebody else within the same group there. Over on the left-hand side of the phone bar, we've got a little headset at the moment. Now that's telling me that all of my calls are going directly through the phone bar on the soft phone. If I click on the device icon here, I have different options of where my calls can go through to. So at the moment, I'm using my soft phone. I could also forward my calls onto my own personal mobile. So there'll be an add button there where you can add on a personal number if you'd like to. And then once you've got a number in there, you can edit it using the pen. It's really useful if you need to be available but are out and about around the practice. You can then forward your calls onto a mobile device and still be available on your short dial or a direct dial number for inbound calls to come through to you. You can also select any of the desk phones within the practice then to log into. So there'll be a drop down at the bottom, and all of the phones on each of the desks, if you're using physical phones, will have their own name across the top of the screen. So you can then match up the phone with the phone that's on your desk. And then if you'd like, if you use that phone often, you can also set it as a favorite. So you can see the system of the Room 101 phone here, I've got set as a favorite. That means that in my device manager, it appears as its own entry so that I can just click on that phone. So if you're on the same desk each day, you can save that as a favorite to log you into that desk phone. If you set it as the desk phone, you can even set so that it's going to require auto login confirmation. So it will ask if you want to log into that desk phone when you select it. Now, in order to make a call, you can just enter a number where it says enter a phone number. So if you just click on the phone bar and pop your cursor in there, there's no keypad, so no need to dial with your mouse. You can use the numbers on your keyboard to then type in any telephone number there. As soon as you have the number in, you can then click on the little start a call icon, which is the green phone here, and that will then dial that number for you. There's no need to dial anything for an outside line. Just make sure if it's a landline number that you're including the area code. Even if it's a number local to your practice, make sure you have the area code in there as well, because it is more like dialing off a mobile network than dialing off a landline. When you click on call, it's going to call through whichever device you've currently got selected. So if it's your desk phone, it will ring your desk phone. When you answer that, it will make the outbound call for you. If you're using the soft phone on the phone bar and you've got your headset selected here, as soon as you hit call, it will make the outbound call to that number, and all of the call audio will go through your headset for you. If you're calling anybody internally within the practice, you can use the directory on the phone bar. Just by clicking where it says open contacts, it will then take you into an internal list of all of the colleagues within the practice. You can also see their status. So just next to each entry, you'll have a little dot, and if you hover over it, it will remind you what that colour means. So we can see that Dr. Deirdre here is unavailable at the moment because she's away from her desk or she's in Do Not Disturb. Whereas Dr. Jamie, I'd be able to call because he's set as available. You can also see by the colour of the phone on the other side. So anybody that you can't dial, you'll just get a little no entry sign. Whereas if the click to call button here is in dark blue, you can then use that to call that particular user. It doesn't matter where they're logged in, it will go through to them wherever they are today. Up at the top of the contacts, you also have a central directory option. In the central directory, you can see the numbers that the system is going to use. So if you need to know the numbers of any of the groups that you use within the practice, if you search for them in the directory, for instance, the appointments group here in our practice is on the number 506. So if I was dialing it on my desk phone, that's the number that I would dial. However, you also have a click to call button next to each of the numbers in this central directory so that you can click on that to call that number directly from the screen as well. Close it, we can just click on the X at the top, or again, you can click on the icon on the phone bar. The next icon along we have is your contact history. So for each user, it will keep a 30-day contact history. You'll be able to see either the names or numbers of the people that you've contacted. So if it was an internal number, it will show you the user or the group name. Although if it's a patient call, it's going to show you the contact number that you used to call them or that they used to call you, so long as that number's not withheld. There's also a click to call button, so if you need to call a particular caller back, then you can do that directly through the call history here as well. So what I'm going to do now is actually make a call in so that you can see an inbound call coming through on the system. So with an inbound call, you'll receive a patient pop-up if Surgery Connect finds any patients in your SystmOne database that match that inbound calling number. It will also give you the call information, so it's going to tell you who they last spoke to and when. And we can see the call ringing on the phone bar here. Because I'm using my soft phone, I can answer it just by clicking answer on the screen, and that will then connect the call through the phone bar. You'll hear the whisper that will tell you what type of call it is that's coming through, and then the call will connect. You can see in my overview here for the call, I've got two patient records that match this contact number. So now that I'm talking to the patient, I can find out which patient it is. And if I click on the patient's name within that pop-up, it will then open that patient record automatically for me in SystmOne. We can also see now on the phone bar that it's associated that call to that particular patient. If I click on the copy icon, it will actually copy the mobile phone number that the patient is calling in on. Now that the call's connected, I've got a little record icon, which is the first icon on the left-hand side here. All of the calls, as I say, are recorded. So if a patient asks you not to record the call, or if you ever need to take payment details over the phone, you can just click on the record icon, and that will then pause the call recording for you. If I click on the record icon again, it will resume that call recording during the call. You've got a call timer, so you can see how long the call's been going on. And on the opposite side of the call details, you've then got the call controls. So I've got a transfer button here, which is the little arrow. If I click on transfer, it automatically goes into my internal list that I can then search just like I could before when it was the directory. The person that I'm looking for is not available, then you've also got access to your central directory so that you can go through to the group rather than an individual in that particular team. And when you click on the click to call button, if you're using the soft phone, it will put the call on hold and then begin the call to the second number for you. When the call connects, you can either use the complete transfer or you can cancel the transfer to go back to your original call. Now this call is showing us on hold at the moment, and you can see the hold icon, which is the second one along, has now gone red to indicate that I've got a call on hold. I can just click on that on the screen and that will then resume the call for me. There is also a mute button rather than using hold if you'd rather. Although hold plays the caller music, so they know they've not been cut off. A mute will mean that they have silence. So it's okay for a quick question, but any longer than a few seconds, I would use the hold option rather than mute. There is also a keypad on the phone bar as well. So if you do go through to a hospital and need to type in extra numbers as an extension number, you can bring up a touchtone keypad that you can then use your mouse to type in any extension numbers or the special characters there. To end the call, I'm just going to click on the red phone here, and that will then disconnect the call from the phone bar. It will leave the patient record open so you can continue to put notes on. When the next call comes in, when you next click on a patient name, it will then open the next patient record for you automatically and swap those as the active record. Now that I have a patient open though, I can actually use the active patient option. So if I needed to call this patient, rather than going finding their number in SystmOne, I can just click on open patient. It will tell me which patient I've currently got active and give me the options for different communication methods. If it's grayed out, it means that that patient doesn't have the right communication method or I'm not using the right device. So on the soft phone, I would normally have the option to either call them, text them, do a photo request, or send a video call. But if the patient doesn't have the correct contact details to receive those, then it won't let me send them there. If they have multiple numbers on their clinical record, you'll be able to see those just by hovering over the little call button. And if you want to send a text message, you can also set up templates there, but it will allow you to enter another mobile number if it's a friend's mobile you need to send it through to. The last icon on here is to actually file all of the details to the patient's clinical record. So if you click on the contact history for the patient there, it will give you a list of all the contacts that we've had with that particular patient and whether they've already been saved. So this is going to give you a 30-day record here. If the call was your call, you can actually listen to your call recording directly from here, and you can select one or more different communications and then file that directly into the patient's record within SystmOne. Once you filed it into SystmOne becomes the data controller, so anybody then that can access those clinical records would also be able to access copies of the call recording and any text messages or photos that have been attached to the patient's clinical records. The final icon that we've got on the phone bar here is our appointments list. So if you're a clinician and you have an appointment list in SystmOne, if you click on Open Appointments on the phone bar, it will link with your appointment list. So here we can see that I've got a list that I need to call today with just the one patient in it. It tells me the status of that current appointment. So this one is showing as booked. And if there's any special notes, that will show in the information section on the appointment list feature. If I want to see this patient's clinical record before I give them a call, if you just click on the patient name, it will then swap the active patient that you've been using within SystmOne. And if I click on the contact button here, it will then bring up the various contact options for that particular patient. Again, hovering over them will show you any alternatives there on the clinical record, and you can file directly from here as well once you have brought up all the patient details. If you click on Actioned, it will complete it in the appointments list on the phone bar, but it doesn't complete any consultations in SystmOne, so you would need to complete those as you would do normally. Now, at the end of the day, if you shut down SystmOne, that won't log you out of the phone bar automatically because you may want to stay logged in on the phone system, but close down your clinical database. So at the end of the day, you will need to make sure that you log out of the phone bar as well. So you can click on your availability and make sure that your status shows as offline. That will then stop anybody calling you internally, stop any calls coming through on your direct dial number, and it will show you as offline in all of the groups that you're a member of as well. You can also right click on the icon that's in your taskbar, and if you then close the window, that will close the phone bar down there, close the phone bar down for you as well. It doesn't change your user status though, so it is important that you make yourself offline before you close down the window. Otherwise, it's going to think you're still logged in and available, and people may try to ring you because you're showing as available, but actually the phone bar is not active on your screen. So make sure you show as offline, and then you can close down the phone bar on that particular PC as you're logging out at the end of the day.